What's going on, guys? My name's Jacob and I'm a part of the CS Cast. Today I'll be doing a Photoshop tutorial on how to retouch and remove objects from images. Let's get right into this. So as I said, guys, this is a Photoshop tutorial, and the tools that we're going to be using are the clone stamp, a bunch of selection tools like the rectangle marquee and the pen tool and things like that. And I've got two images here. I can put a link in the description if you want to use them as practice, but I've got this one here and I've got this one here. I basically have these because I thought they were good examples, because I got these cars on the road here that I would probably get rid of if I was doing a piece of art. I'd get rid of these cars and possibly this person. This one I had as a secondary image so I can get rid of these people in here using the same techniques. So let's get right into this. What we're going to do first is just open this with Photoshop, and we'll wait for Photoshop to load up here. When you open up your image in Photoshop, it may look very hard and very clustered, but it's really not that difficult to remove objects. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our left bar and we're going to go to the clone stamp, which is this tool right here. We're going to select it and make sure we have a new layer created. We're going to name this car 1. So the car 1 is going to be this red car. I'm going to get rid of it. So basically, when you have your clone stamp on, you're going to want to make sure that this is selected so that it's current and below. So this means it's going to sample things from this layer as well as the background layer. So as you can see, it's already selected something, but I haven't really gone to select it yet. So what I want to do is I'm going to hold Alt, sample a piece of the tarmac from behind the truck, and then I'm going to drag it up so that, as you can see, it's covering the truck. Now if I right click and turn the hardness up of my brush a little bit, it will be covered up a little bit more. And basically all we're going to want to do is just click, click, and as you can see already, it's coming together. So as you can see already, we've gotten rid of one car partially. We've still got to work on this a little bit. I'm going to take these lines up here and sort of continue them up here. Make my brush a little bit smaller to get rid of this line. Sample here, drag up, and get rid of that car. So as you can see, we got rid of this car. I think there's this spot here that I don't really like, so all you got to do is sample, cover it up. So I'm starting to like that. Pretty much you're going to repeat this step for all of the cars. Now I'm going to do this, but I'm going to speed it up so you guys don't have to watch it. Alright guys, I believe it's pretty simple. The clone stamp is really easy. It's a great technique. I mean, there's a few mistakes because I was rushing it. Like you can see, there's a little bit of repetition here. It's very easily fixable. There's the spot healing brush tool right here that you can, you just click and it pretty much just samples the colors for you. It's a really great tool. Let's see. Let's get rid of this little black dot here. So before or after, it's a really great tool. I mean, there's a lot of tools all under this column here. These are all great. The patch tool right here is also great. You can highlight this car right here. Oops. You've got to be on the background layer for this tool though. So we will select the car and drag it, and the car essentially is gone. There's some patchwork that needs to be done, so I'm going to redo that. But it's a great tool. I use this one a lot when I'm doing my photo manipulations. It's a great tool. I really enjoy this tool. Anyways, I believe you understand what the gist of it is. I mean, now we've got a clear bridge. Now we can even add objects into our composition. We can take people from a different picture, cut them out, and bring them into this picture. That will be covered in a totally different tutorial because it's a whole separate process. That's the gist of how to get rid of objects from images. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work on color correction. Color correction is a big key. There's a lot of plugins that can just, you press a button, the color correction just does itself pretty much. But what we're going to do is we're actually just going to merge these two layers together so that we've got one full composition here. And then we're going to, these are adjustment layers up here. If you don't have them, go to Window and then click Adjustments. It will show them. I already had them, so I made it disappear. But anyways, these are adjustment layers. So basically, if we click on the first one here, it's brightness and contrast. This adds an adjustment layer above all the layers pretty much that you would have. If you only have one layer, that's okay, but just make sure this is the top layer. All your adjustment layers want to be on the very top so that it's color correcting the whole composition. So this is going to adjust the brightness. Now, if we want it to be, I guess, sunnier, we can even add a sun over here for a photo manipulation if we are going that way, or we can make it darker. It's really up to you. I can make it look like nighttime if I really wanted to. That looks like night right there. But this is just some subtle adjustments that I'm going to be doing, so it won't be too much. This is levels. It's really self-explanatory. You just drag it to your liking. You drag these little sliders, and it will adjust it a little bit. This makes it brighter, this makes it darker, and this is midtones. So I don't like playing with the levels too much, maybe a tiny bit, but it's really not too helpful. Curves is another good one. It's really subtle changes though. You don't want to make it really dark like this or really light like that. It's subtle. So with that being said, I'm going to make a subtle change down here so that it darkens it up a bit and then lightens it up on the sky. And I believe that looks okay, but there could be some work done to it. Alright, so now we've got our exposure. Exposure's not something to be played around with a lot as well, but if you're doing something different, you could definitely use it, but I don't think I'd ever use something like this. Maybe a tad. 0.0083 is what I just put mine at, the offset. Now the exposure can be anything. I mean, I prefer it to be zero, around zero, but it's really to your liking, as I said before. Gamma correction's really nothing as well. It's just to your liking. Drag the slider until you think it looks good. It's not what I think, it's pretty much all what you think. So vibrance is self-explanatory. It's how vibrant the colors are. It's like if you're having sort of a dark and grimy kind of feel, the vibrance should be lower. If it's kind of more happy and upbeat, the vibrance should definitely be up higher. Saturation, you guys probably all know, it's the intensity of the colors. I can make it black and white if I really wanted to, but I don't. So I'm going to turn the saturation back up and then turn the vibrance down a bit. I think that looks pretty nice. Maybe that. Yeah, that looks nice. Alright, now I'm going to add color balance or hue and saturation. The color balance is really, it's not too important. The hue and saturation is what you can go and change the colors with. I don't suggest changing the colors for anything because it would make it look unrealistic. You can definitely tweak it a tiny bit to make it more upbeat, I guess you could say. This is another saturation slider. I wouldn't suggest playing too much with it, but it's always good to experiment, so go right ahead, move that all the way up and see what it does, because I know it's tempting. I've done it a million times, just like if you just want to see what things do, you know, you just sort of want to see what it does, so you drag it all the way up and you're like, oh, maybe you like that. I don't know. It's up to you. But I suggest not playing around with it too much. I'm going to keep it at 4. And then this is another lightness and darkness. I'd suggest keeping that around 1, 0. I don't know. It's up to you. Color balance is not too great, but I suggest using a tiny bit. Maybe a tint. I like using the yellow tint because it makes it look nice. It's my opinion, not yours. use your own ideas. If you like the yellow too, go right ahead. It's whatever you think. This is the midtones. You can change it to the shadows. You can change the highlights of the shadows down to whatever you would like. It's really up to you. And then these are the highlights. You can change the highlights up to, I'm going to put some blue in the highlights because I think the blue looks nice. Back to shadows, I put too much red. Alright, I think that looks really nice. Now I'm gonna do, these are all if you're doing photographs and things like that. Like this adds a photo filter. You can have a warming filter, a cooling filter, red, orange. It pretty much does what I just did all in one click. Here's the warming filter, and you can turn the density up. It's up to you. I personally just like what I did myself, and then add that on after. Maybe turn this down a bit. You can have your own color, make it purple if you wanted to. It's up to you. I like this one. I like this color a lot, but I'm going to keep it on the warming filter that comes right, like the very first one. I turn the density up a tiny bit and then close it. So I'm happy with the color correction that I have, but there's other things you can do that I'll show you what they do in just a minute. So what you want to do to complete your color correction is you're going to want to click the first color correction layer and hold shift and click the last one. This is going to select them all. Then you're going to want to do Control G to group them, or you can just click this group button down here. This will create a group that you can now click them all and drag them into it. Control G is very useful. I think Control V is the fastest way. Now I can show you the before and after. It's basically for at the end of your photo manipulations to make them look a little more clean and cut off. There's plugins that you can get a higher contrast sort of feel to it. It's really up to you. You can search around for plugins. I don't necessarily like using plugins because I like using what the program has to offer, not really what the plugins do. So it's up to you guys. This is the color correction. I'm going to show you the last few and then I'll be... Okay, so the gradient map adds whatever gradient you want, really. It pretty much colorizes your whole photo. So if we add this gradient, it will be that color. I personally don't know where this gradient came from. You probably won't have this, but you can definitely make your own. You can make it red, you can make it light blue, green, yellow. I really like using yellow. I suggest you use yellow. It's up to you though. And if you have it as white, it's going to make all the dark contrast shadows white, but if you have it dark, it's going to keep them dark, so that's another tip. Gray is right in between. It's really good. The second slider basically makes all the dark tones that color, so you make it at blue and then there you go, all those are blue. But I like keeping it around black, dark gray. That's pretty good. And then what you can do is you can turn the opacity down on that layer so it has a tint. As you can see, adds a little bit of a tint. I did that by myself with the hue and saturation of my color layer, but if you turn this on with my color correction, I'm sure it doesn't look too bad. 3 opacities, even a lot, so maybe if I turn mine off and just keep this up at a higher opacity. Anyways, that's the gradient map. Now selective color, I don't really know what this one does because I don't really use it. Now for threshold, this basically makes it black and white, pitch black, pitch white, and you can fiddle around with this. It's not very useful. It's really not. I don't suggest using it. It could be good for some effects for a social media banner or something like that, but it's really not too helpful in my opinion. But give it a shot, go see what it does. It's very good to become familiar with these types of things. Alright, on to posterize. So this is posterize. Basically makes it like a cartoony type effect. I'm going to turn my color correction off so I can show you. This looks a little bit more vibrant. You can add this if you want. I don't suggest it. It looks kind of messed up. I don't personally like it, but go right ahead, use it. It's very good to get familiar with these type of things because once you know what they do, maybe you know to use them, you know not to use them, but this one is definitely not one that I would use. Okay. On to invert. Invert makes everything inverted. So you can also do this by clicking Control I. You can do Control I here on your keyboard on the background layer, and it will invert it. I don't know why they have this here. I don't really like it. There's no options for it or anything. I don't really get it. Alright, color lookup, not very useful to me, but it may be useful to you if you find out how to use it. I don't know how to use this. I don't usually use this, but from what I know, or what I just did, for the abstract one checked off, you can select these, I guess, presets. Anyways, if you guys want to do that, I don't know what it really does, but that's from what I know, that's all it does. I guess you can upload a file to it or something. I mean, there's a bunch of different things you can select on this. It's up to you guys. These are just, I guess, preset effects. I guess you can import your own if you click load. I don't know. Alright, on to Channel Mixer. Channel Mixer is another color feature. It basically changed the colors. This was something you wouldn't want to mess around with too much. As you can see, I'm at 200%, and it totally messes up the photo. And even at negative 200, look at what it does. I mean, it might be good for something one day, but I'd only move it a tiny bit, and I don't even know why it's not going back to normal. I guess it doesn't go back to normal. This is not something I regularly use, but if you get familiar enough with it, I'm sure you can do this. Alright, coming back to the last one is the photo filter, which I've already went over, but I just realized I missed one, which was the black and white. This is just basically making your whole composition black and white. You can make the reds more black or the yellows more black. It's really up to you. This is just to achieve a better black and white photo. Anyways, I believe I've covered enough in this tutorial for you guys to know how to remove objects from images and retouch them. I think I'm going to be doing a tutorial in the future on how to add images into photos and how to cut them out the most efficient way. I'm going to be going over Pen Tool, and as well as Cinema 4D. Actually, I'm going to be bringing in a render from Cinema 4D and adding effects to it as well. Anyways, guys, my name's Jake once again, and I'm part of the CS Cast. Thank you.